Hello, my name is Steve Hernandez, and I am the Executive Director of the Connecticut General Assembly's Nonpartisan Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity. Today, we're hosting a webinar titled Getting It Right, Cannabis Implementation Policy Virtual Forum. This forum will be co-moderated by my friend, State Representative Robin Porter, and we will feature a series of presentations focusing on the implementation of the state's cannabis laws, including how the law affects the medical industry, dispensaries and their patients, ongoing public education and community outreach efforts, emerging social equity and real estate issues, and what, if any, further structural or policy changes are needed. I'm so excited today to be joined by a star-studded panel of equity advocates from around the country, really, and around the world. We are leading in so many ways in the state of Connecticut. We're co-hosting today with Connecticut United for Reform and Equity and the Minority Cannabis Business Association. Again, I am honored to be co-hosting today with Robin Porter, State Representative. We are going to be introducing our panelists in just a little bit, but first I'd love to bring my co-moderator to the floor, Robin, for a few words as you get us started.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you so much for allowing us this platform to have this very critical conversation, on-time conversation, I would say, with the way things are moving here in the state of Connecticut, with the legalization of adult use cannabis, and with the many questions that are coming from the community as a whole, those that are interested in being a part of this industry, and then those that aren't quite sure if they want to be a part of this industry. As you stated, we plan to cover many aspects and prongs to entry into this industry and to hopefully clear up any misconceptions and miscommunications about what's going on in Connecticut around the legalization of adult use. The one thing that I will just quickly say is that we know Connecticut opened its first application round for certain recreational cannabis licenses Thursday, and there is some serious concern about the ability for this state to reach the goal of creating an equitable market. So as we move forward, I look forward to the communication that will come from the panelists and those that are closest to this problem, right? And I won't say problem, but closest to this industry. You know, they are the ones that really know what's happening in real time. And we are here today to make sure that we're giving real-time information for those who are seeking the truth around the legalization of this cannabis in Connecticut. So thank you again, and thank you to our panelists, and I look forward to their introduction. Back to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Robin. And as you said, this is a legal regulated concern now in the state of Connecticut. It's important to really hover around that concept because in some ways, this is now a business like any other regulated business in the state of Connecticut. The difference, however, is that it comes from a legacy of not just any other consequence in the history of the state of Connecticut. So many of our people suffered under the disproportionate impact of over-criminalization around this plant, which is now a legal commodity in the state. So it's important that as we think about how we roll out business around this industry in the state of Connecticut, that we do so in a way that is rigged in favor of people who have been disproportionately impacted in the past. So I just wanted to start with that to get us started. I'm going to have each of you introduce yourselves as we bring you onto the panel, because I think that gives you the ability for us to see you and people at home to see you. For our viewers, I would love if you were to interact with us as we go along, both on our Facebook page and here on the question and answer platform that we have. Please type your questions into the Q&A. We will be addressing those later on. And let's get started. Firstly, I would love to introduce Ginny Ray Clay. Ginny, if you could please come forward. I know you're going to be sharing a presentation. Introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you're going to be talking about today.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story with your audience, and thank you for convening this group. I am the Interim Executive Director of the Social Equity Council, and I'm going to be giving an overview of the council and talking a little bit about the opportunities that the council will create and is creating for people who have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs and getting them involved in the legalization of cannabis. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, here we go. Can you see that? Excellent. Okay, and I'm going to actually go off camera so you can focus on the screen. Okay, so, oops, sorry. Public Act 21-1 created the responsible and equitable regulation of adult use cannabis.
Ginny Ray, you muted yourself.
I believe you're muted. There you go.
This is what happens when you're the first one. Okay, sorry about that. Let's get started. So the mission of the Social Equity Council is to promote and encourage full participation in the cannabis industry by people disproportionately harmed by cannabis prohibition and enforcement, and to support broad-based economic development in those communities. The Social Equity Council is responsible to oversee the verification of social equity applicants. It is also responsible to create new programs to support both cannabis businesses and businesses in other industries, to manage community investments derived from the cannabis tax revenue, and to work closely with Connecticut agencies, including the Department of Economic and Community Development and the Department of Consumer Protection, to carry out its duties to open the cannabis industry and reinvest in disproportionately impacted areas. Members of the Social Equity include Marilyn Alvario, Ramon Arroyo, Corey Bex, who is on with us today, Fabian Durango, Avery Gaddis, Sabira Gordon, who is also on with us today, Michael Jefferson, David Lehman, who is the Commissioner of DECD, Secretary Melissa McCaw, who is the Secretary of the Office of Policy and Management, Ojala Naeem, Edwin Shirley, Dr. Kelly Valeris, who is the Chief Workforce Officer for the state of Connecticut, Joseph Williams, and State Treasurer Sean Wooden. The Chair of the Social Equity Council is Andrea Comer, who is also the Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Consumer Protection. So to qualify as a social equity applicant, you must meet 3 areas of criteria. The first is your income your average household income must be less than 300% of the state median household income for the past 3 years preceding the application. This includes all members of your household who are 21 years and older. You must include their income. There is a residency requirement. You must have lived in a disproportionately impacted area for the first 5 of the 10 years, so for the past 5 years before you are submitting your application, or for the first 9 years before you turned 18 years old, so grew up in the disproportionately impacted area. Also, the social equity applicant must own 65% and control the company. So the way the application process goes is we have a lottery and we have a non-lottery. The lottery and the non-lottery opened on February 3rd. So the lottery, the first lottery application that opened was the retailer. And I'll tell you in a few minutes about the other applications and when they will open, and I'll also let you know how many social equity applicants we're looking for to fill, or how many licenses will be available in each category. The non-lottery consists of, we call them 149 social equity applicant cultivators in a DIA. This means that folks can bypass the lottery if they plan to open be a cultivator in a disproportionately impacted area. They pay the fee, but they do not have to go through the lottery. The producer and dispensary conversion. So those are folks who are currently producing and selling medical cannabis, and they will be seeking to convert to recreational, as well as continuing to provide medical. And then equity joint ventures. And equity joint ventures are those who want to set up two equity joint ventures. They can pay a fee, a reduced fee, and bypass the lottery as well. Each of the application periods has a 90-day application period. So that is for the lottery as well as the non-lottery. The non-lottery social equity applicants are going to be reviewed on a rolling basis. So each time an application is submitted, it will be processed and then it will come to the Social Equity Council for review. And we are planning to start reviewing those applications approximately 30 days after the opening of the application period. For the social equity lottery applicants, the review will begin 90 days after the beginning of the application period. It will not be rolling because this is a lottery. So we will need to collect all of the applications and submit them so that they can be processed to be a part of the lottery and to be equitably put out for review. Qualified social equity applicants will need to have a background check in order to move on to the provisional license. So once you have been qualified as a social equity applicant, you will have a background check, and right after the background check, if everything is okay, you can move forward to apply for the provisional license. Social equity applicants who are granted a provisional license will have 14 months to get final approvals, apply for the full license, and get all their local approvals and open for business. So I promised that I would tell you about the number of licenses and when those application periods open. So again, the non-lottery applications opened on February 3rd, 90-day application period. The retail license opened on February 3rd. There will be 6 licenses granted in this round of the lottery for retailer. Micro cultivator, 2 licenses will be granted, and that opens on February 10th. Delivery service, 5 licenses will be awarded, and that will open on February 17th. Hybrid retailer, 2, opening February 24th. Food and beverage manufacturers, 5, opening on March 3rd. Product manufacturer, 3, opening on March 10th. Product packager, 3, opening on March 17th. And transporter, 2, opening on March 24th. And we did this because what would happen is if all of the license opened at the same time, we would have hundreds of applications that are just sitting there. So we thought it would be a good idea to give folks extra time to allow the licenses to open in a staggering way. And it also gives us the opportunity to manage the review of the applications in a more manageable fashion. So the Social Equity Council is sponsoring several lunch and learn, and we're going to also be having some technical assistance that is available to anyone that's looking to get involved with the cannabis industry. So we did have a kickoff and an overview of the programming process on February 3rd. That recording is available on the Social Equity Council website if you missed that one. Financing Your Cannabis Business was also held on February 3rd, live, as well as February 8th, and both of those recordings are available on the Social Equity website. The next webinars that we have coming up will be license types, application process, required documents, accounting and taxes, lottery, real estate, local zoning, post-license operations, security, and we will also be hosting a series of office hours with subject matter experts. And we're looking to do that about 3 times a week to give folks an opportunity to have a good dialogue and exchange with those people that might be able to provide them with some good information as they seek to submit their application. So my topic said, what does the Public Act does and does not? So just generally, the Public Act does create opportunity, jobs, and reinvestment. What it does not provide is guarantees, entitlement, or promises. If you are going to get involved in the cannabis business, although this Public Act is designed to assist people who have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs, you still must do your homework. This is a business, and you must do all of the due diligence and be prepared to run it as such. And that's what we will also help you do. So for information and technical assistance, you can contact the Social Equity Council at sec@ct.gov. You can email questions there, and we will respond to those questions related to social equity applicants, social equity criteria. The Department of Consumer Protection, who is the regulator of the licenses, is dcp.cannabis@ct.gov. And please email your questions to that email address. And I promise you, we respond as quickly as we can. And I personally respond to the social equity email myself, and I look at that every day. For information, informational websites, the Social Equity Council, ct.gov/Social Equity Council. For adult cannabis use, and the DCP website, adult use cannabis, ct.gov. There's some information too that I just wanted folks to know is on the DCP website, we do have information on zoning and zoning changes, because if a municipality has decided they do not want cannabis in their community, you will not be able to locate a cannabis business there. So it's very important as you are looking for a site, looking for a location, looking for support, to know which municipalities are supportive of recreational use cannabis and which municipalities are not interested. I also have a link to the disproportionately impacted area maps. Or a map that shows the state of Connecticut and where those disproportionately located areas are. If you email me, I can certainly send you that information. I can also send you the census tracts. So I do have the census tracts by number. And if you'd like those, please email me and I will send that information out to you. And finally, the Office of the Social Equity Council is located in Hartford. We are housed within the Department of Economic and Community Development, and available again, here is our general email box. Please, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to send your questions there. So I hope that that was helpful to folks. And if anybody has any questions, I'm going to stay on and participate fully in this forum. Thank you.
Jenny Ray, thank you for that. I loved your emphasis, by the way, that this is a business. Do your homework, get yourself informed, understand the lay of the land, but also understand where you can continue to push for reforms, continue to push for streamlining of opportunities so that you can actually have a leg in the possibility of running one of these businesses in the state of Connecticut. So thank you for underscoring that point, Jenny Ray. We are going to come back to you as you were speaking. There were questions already coming into the chat function, which we will be addressing after the round of presentations. So again, welcome and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Kebra Smith Bolden. Kebra, I feel like we've come together a few times now, and I'm just so grateful for your thoughtfulness in providing us a real understanding about the fact that not only is this a plant that is used for recreational purposes, this is also a medicine. So Kebra, welcome. We're excited to hear your presentation.
Well, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Kebra Smith Bolden. I'm a registered nurse, originally from New Haven, Connecticut, where I raised my children and my family. Own several businesses that are New Haven based and hire from within the community. Have worked for the last few years on cannabis legislation and advocating for social equity to be a part of this industry, and we were successful on some points and not so successful on others. But, you know, we have what we have, and we're here to work with the laws before us and help everyone who can take advantage of these opportunities if you're ready and if you're prepared. So I just wanted to talk first about because health is equity, and it's very important that we talk about patients and how they were affected by the legalization of cannabis. And so there were some very positive things, but let me start with the most common question I get. I do cannabis certifications, do Canna Health, and patients always ask me, are they still charging now for us to get our medical cannabis cards? And yes, there is still the $100 fee that must be paid to the state. Let me just talk a little bit about the program and give you a little background. First of all, despite the laws for cannabis legalization for adult use just being passed last year, medical cannabis was passed in 2012. We currently have 53,000 patients. We have 18 dispensaries throughout the state, and we have 4 medical producers who provide the cannabis that our patients consume. And there are currently about 1,500 physicians statewide that will certify you for medical cannabis, and they're available through, you can find them on Weed Maps. If you just Google medical cannabis or medical marijuana certification, you can find access to that. Now, some of the things that happened with the changes to the law were that, number one, medical cannabis patients have the right to possess up to 5 ounces of medical cannabis, and that can be in several different forms, but that is very important to know. Our allowances have increased. In addition, starting October 1st of last year, medical cannabis patients were allowed to grow medical cannabis. So they're allowed to grow 3 mature and 3 immature plants per patient. And so that's really something that we fought for, and we were successful in at least getting that started with our patients, and can continue to advocate for that statewide. In addition, something that a lot of dispensaries have not taken advantage of, but is their ability to actually deliver to patients. So if you are a patient who is purchasing from a dispensary, encourage them to start delivering to you. That's an option that they have and they can take advantage of through this law. And so that's something that we're not seeing a lot of dispensaries doing. I think they're just waiting for the people to get licensed to do that. But, you know, that's something that they have an option to do. In addition, another benefit that we received through this law is not having to just go to one dispensary. So previously, you were assigned one dispensary and you had to stay at that dispensary until you put in a request to change with the state. It sometimes was up to a 30-day process. And, you know, if you were getting your medicine from one particular dispensary, and let's say they ran out of it and another dispensary had it, you would not be able to, in the past, go and get your medicine from the other dispensary, but now you're able to do that. And that's a benefit because it provides access and allows patients to be able to continue to medicate with the same medication if it's available. And then just so that people feel comfortable, you're a patient, we are protected. They have put in protection so that any dispensary will continue to have a pharmacist on site and have to have consultation rooms to review your medications, go over your symptoms, and help to make sure that they're managed appropriately. So if you have any questions about the Connecticut Medical Cannabis Program, about social equity, about the law, please feel free to reach out to me. And we're at gocannahealth.com, and I am looking forward to the rest of the conversation.
Kebra, thank you so much. You know, it's wonderful to see that as a state, we are poised to really understand the full scope of the investment that we are making in this new industry for the state. I think that we have learned so much from sister states and other parts of the country that have perhaps focused on one aspect of the industry or another, but because we are Connecticut, we are on the threshold of really fully understanding opportunity here as it is laying before us. So Kebra, it's exciting, and I bet it's exciting for so many to see the possibilities, our viewers to see the possibilities as they're thinking about pathways to career. I know we're going to be hearing from Sabira Gordon in a little bit, but as they're thinking about pathways to career and opportunity, not only in this industry, but in adjacent industries as well. So thank you so much for that presentation. Next, we will hear from Sabira Gordon. And Sabira, it's, as I said, it's exciting to think about the possibilities here in this industry and in adjacent industries. So welcome, Sabira. Please introduce yourself, a dear friend and former colleague and continuing friend in this work. So welcome, Sabira.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invite. Very happy to be here. Sabira Gordon, and I'm the Executive Director of CONCAN. I sit on the Social Equity Council and I chair the Outreach Committee. And, you know, this is, I think, very near and dear to my heart. I think many people on this council, okay, sorry, my 4-year-old is here and wants to be in the conversation. And oops, I'm sorry, she just fell. Come here, mama, come.
Thank you,
Go to somebody else and come back to me. She just fell and
we
bumped.
sure will. You know what, Sabira, this is the beauty of our modern age, is that we fully understand not only the importance of family, but the beauty of Zoom that brings us all together in a richer way than ever before. So we'll come back to you, Sabira. Don't even worry about it. Next, we're gonna move to Corey Betts. Welcome, Corey. If you could let our viewers know who you are, and please jump right in.
My name is Corey Betts. Thanks, Mr. Hernandez. I am a native of Hartford, Connecticut. I am the former criminal justice chair for the state conference of the NAACP. I'm still a part of that committee. And I am also a member of the Social Equity Council. So, and I'm here just for a rich conversation to see what and how we can move and make sure that equity is spread amongst those who are really and who's been definitely impacted by, for me, the war on drugs. That's something that's really dear and near to my heart. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Corey. And it's so important to continue to frame the conversation rightfully in the place where it should be, which is the reason that we're all here together today is to ensure that there's equitable access not only to the industry, but also an equitable understanding of why it is that it's so important to support not just an understanding that there have been inequities, but also everything that it takes to right those wrongs and have full participation in these industries. So thank you, Corey. We turn again back to Sabira Gordon. Welcome back.
Thank you. I apologize for that. Yeah, so I was saying, you know, this issue is near and dear to my heart. I think most people on this call have, you know, a family member who's been impacted. I have a close family member who's been impacted by the war on drugs. And when we think about legalized cannabis, I think we have an opportunity in Connecticut to be out front and do what's right. And sitting on the Social Equity Council, we get a front row seat to the making. Like we're building the business, we are building the market that is going to be housing the legalized cannabis industry. And when it comes to education and outreach, I think it's very important. We're doing a lot of work to ensure that we are educating the public about the process. Jenny Ray kind of explained licensing, but in addition to that, we'll be launching a website where you can actually just go on and get all the information that you would like to be able to figure out how to become a business owner. I do a lot of work in education policy, and our education system really does not train students how to be entrepreneurs. And this is a great opportunity for young people, specifically people of color, to think about how to be business owners. There's lots of jobs that are going to be coming down the pike that are in the cannabis industry that we just haven't thought of before. So really, you know, we want to be here as a resource to figure out how can we skill up, how can we get specifically in those areas that are disproportionately impacted, how can we get as many businesses as possible up and run by individuals of color, and then also thinking about that community reinvestment piece of it. We need to be reinvesting in our communities. This law, I think, you know, it's been touted as one of the best ones that's been done in the country for that specific reason. We have an opportunity to think about the resources that are going to be the profits from this industry they should be invested in communities. And, I think that's going to be a long-term conversation, but if we are able to spend that money and get people, figure out how to get them licenses, figure out how to get them technical assistance, figure out how to ensure that they have the resources to start the business, that will end up breaking cycles of generational poverty, which is what this is about. Those who were, incarcerated, that has had an impact on their family for generations. So we want to ensure that whatever we're doing here is righting the wrongs of that history. It's not going to be easy, but I look forward to partnering with everyone on this call and the public as we build out what the future is going to look like. I think when we think about outreach, if there's anything, if anyone wants us to do a town hall, wants us to come in and have a conversation about how we can collaborate, can we create a collaborative process around licensing? If you want to figure out, there's lots of resources if you want to figure out how to get a business plan, how to find, we can't, give you legal advice, but we can talk to you about what are some of the questions that you should be asking a lawyer. I think that is the role that we have on the council. And Corey's also on the outreach committee. So I love to volunteer Corey for things that he didn't volunteer himself for, but we're happy to come to anywhere that you would like us to go to and share as many resources as possible, because I am sitting here because I want to have a big impact on the communities that have been impacted by the war on drugs. So thank you for the invite and looking forward to just listening to this conversation. And I'm going to go off camera again so I can be with my little girl who's hit her head for a second now, but thank you.
Thank you, Sabira.
Thank you.
And thank you for lifting up those cannabis adjacent industries that I know will be developing around this commodity. You think about the legal profession, you think about the medical profession, you think about research, our premier research institutions here in the state of Connecticut. We have to look no further than Diageo down the way, based in the state of Connecticut. It's an entire industry, a company that revolves around spirits. Imagine the number of jobs that the state of Connecticut can grow from within the state for young people who are watching this now and seeing the possibility of their future in the state of Connecticut. So thank you again, Sabira. Robin, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank the panelists so far who have done their introductions. It gives me great pleasure to bring this next panelist to the forefront, someone I've had the pleasure of working with. And he is going to talk a little bit about the emerging social equity and real estate issues when it comes to this newly legalized cannabis industry. So I welcome Mr. Louis Vega, who is the CEO and founder of Wepa Farms. Louis, you have the floor.
Hello, everybody. My name is Luis Vega. I'm the CEO and founder of Wepa Farms. We're a hemp producer here in the state. We manage about 100 to 400 acres on any given year. We've been participating in the hemp program since the educational years of hemp here in the state. Moved on to a pilot program, and then from there, the state got approved for its state program, and now we are in a state-approved program. I'm also a licensed processor here in the state as well through the Department of Consumer Protection. So we maintain both agricultural licenses and Department of Consumer Protection licenses to operate with hemp, which is the same plant as cannabis. It just has less THC inside of it. So a big part of what's going on right now, and as everybody moves through here, is we're really excited to have this new emerging marketplace, and real estate and where we can actually locate these businesses is going to be an absolutely huge thing. Thank you so much to everybody here and Ginny Ray for doing that great presentation earlier. It set up everybody moving forward. So as you saw from the presentation, there's some areas that has been distinguished as directly impacted areas, and there's a lot of issues with real estate currently. So we're really looking forward to the upcoming webinars and meetings that the Social Equity Council is coming up with. And another big portion of this is, as you enter this space, the emphasis I believe everybody's going to do today is you should understand that you're a business. As you're moving forward, you will be operating as a business. You'll be applying on the website as a business. You have to understand that doing it the right way means that you have to do it the right way all the way, which means become a business. You have to pay some taxes. You have to understand what the rules are. Start taking part in your local politics so that you can understand what's going on, because local government's going to be a huge thing. There are towns that are starting to opt out, implement memorandums. They're looking to either highlight or exclude the cannabis industry in their city or town. Then we start to look at this data and we can actually start to create areas in the state that may be what we can call cannabis deserts. We understand the idea of a food desert, but now when a commodity that's legal in this state, you know, it becomes something that's viable. It's a commodity. Are you operating in a cannabis desert? Does that mean that anybody who's purchasing cannabis from a licensed retailer in that space is paying a premium solely because nobody else is operating in the space? It separates individuals that have been disproportionately harmed. And, you know, as we sit here and we have these conversations, I was disproportionately harmed from the word cannabis, you know. I love Connecticut. A lot of people come in, and I know everybody in this panel here will say, hey, we love Connecticut. I'm from New York City. I was born in Chicago, raised in New York, and I got to go to college here in Connecticut as a Latino, where many people from my neighborhood did not go to college. You know, I keep it very frank. We were so poor, we didn't know we were poor. Everybody around us was broke. You know, it was just something we didn't know. You know, I'm third generation cannabis user. You know, these are some of these things that you don't even think about before you start having these conversations. Wow, yeah, my father smoked pot. My grandfather smoked pot at some point. Wow, I'm a third generation cannabis user from the inner city. And now I'm sitting on a great panel, all these amazing people. And if anything, I want anybody that's listening to this to understand that it's completely possible to make your dreams come true. There may be roadblocks, and that's what these great individuals and you will start to do and fight for yourself. But to understand that you can do it too. We belong in this industry. We belong at the table. A lot of times our community doesn't believe that they even belong in the same rooms as a lot of these things are going on. Forget if the idea of social equity is even fair that was passed. The idea of that we perpetuate within ourselves to think that we're not enough sometimes because we come from a different standing or different room, or hey, we don't know how to address somebody looking for land. We don't know how to address somebody looking for financing. It's not necessarily this panel's and the social equity commissions or the CCC's job to teach that, but to understand that those are things that you should feel safe in asking. Those are things that you should feel safe in knowing. And just knowing that you belong. You know, we can do this. It's a long, hard trail, but there's some amazing individuals fighting for what they're doing. Run for an office in your town. Run for, you know, take part in what's going on in your local community, because as a business person, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's looking to get into a space that's fastly changing, very, very, very fastly changing, because I believe we're going to talk later about some proposed changes and things that are going to happen moving forward, because as sessions go on, this doesn't stop. You know, yes, we got legalization. The form we got was the form we got, and we're just playing by the rules right now and making sure to take place and working towards bettering those rules. I really look forward to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that great introduction and for really connecting the dots on this and speaking to the history, something that Stephen mentioned earlier, the disproportionate impact on communities of color, a 3-generational male, Latino, that is now in the business, in the industry, and making a very good living and actually building something that we haven't been afforded, generational wealth. And I think that's very important. So when you talk about amazing individuals, I have to say, Louis, you are certainly one of those amazing individuals, and I certainly feel blessed to have crossed your path. I'm learning a lot from you, and I'm looking forward to what our audience today will learn from you and all the other panelists. And I will say this, you talk about the industry and where we've come across the generations. Let's be mindful, and I need to say this, we are the originators of this industry. This is legacy for us. It was criminalized when we were doing it. So I think this conversation is very critical and on time, because we need to address the stigma and the impact and how we rectify that in a way that is truly equitable. And next up, I have someone else that I have to thank tremendous accolades for. This guy is phenomenal when it comes to policy. He has actually been very critical in us making sure that we had and have equity in this language. Jason Ortiz, a good friend, a great partner, and I will let Jason introduce himself and tell you where he is now, because he is steadily evolving as we continue to educate ourselves and our communities around the legalization of adult use cannabis. Jason, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Robin. Always a pleasure. And yeah, I definitely have learned a lot working with this group of fantastic people and figure out the best way to make the best path forward with what we are given, right? And so my name is Jason Ortiz. My day job is as the Executive Director of Students for Sensible Drug Policy, which is an international nonprofit that trains young people to change drug policies in their communities, including cannabis policies. And before that, I was the president of the Minority Cannabis Business Association, looking very specifically at supporting Black and Brown businesses entering the cannabis space as owners, employees, and consumers, all three of those. And so there's a lot of different facets to cannabis equity. But for this forum, I can say in 2022, we're talking about a legal industry. So like that is a huge step forward, right? We did it. We are now past the point of if it's going to happen and how to make it the best system we possibly can, right? And that is a big deal, right? People now have home grow rights that they didn't have before. And so we are making progress. And so in that spirit of progress, right, there are lots of different ways that I think we can correct course from some interesting developments I think that's happened over the last few months. Just so folks know, as Ginny alluded to earlier, that the licensing has begun. And so there are various deadlines to check out and see which ones you're interested in, what your personal background is. But where the broader market and broader people of color participation in the market policy goes, as we said last year, it was going to come down a lot to how many licenses were given out, right? So the difference between thousands of people of color, you know, competing over hundreds of licenses or two, we ended up with two. And on the flip side of that, we weren't exactly sure how folks were going to handle limiting the multi-state operators and the current medical industry, and they ended up with infinite. And so we kind of saw the worst outcome when it came to the actual numbers of licenses. And so that decision, though, came from the governor's office, right? In the legislation, because I want it to be one of the things that's going to be important as we go through this process as a community is to fully understand who's responsible for what piece so that our criticism and our energies are pointed in the right direction. And so the question over how many licenses are they going to give out was a decision by the Department of Consumer Protection, right? The governor, he is the executive of the entire government. And so we are comparing literally two micro licenses that are going to be set aside for micro cultivators in social equity to the bigger dogs are going to be able to get 20 or 30 or 40 additional more licenses. And that is just pure math going to push all of us out, right? On the real estate piece that Luis was talking about earlier, that's the biggest choke point where all of this influx of available licensing for those that have outside capital, they can sit on important locations, whether or not they end up getting that city or not. And because there's only so many places that are zoned, it's literally going to be a race to see who can scoop up whatever's available. And especially due to the unlimited number of licenses they're able to get, right now it's a land grab that is going to happen in the disproportionately impacted areas. And it's going to be the folks that live in those disproportionately impacted areas that will already be boxed out before the lottery even happens. And so the biggest problem I see for the current legislature, for the folks in the executive branch, is we have to flip those dynamics. Like we said from the beginning, there should be dramatically more licenses for everybody else. And the Department of Consumer Protection could announce that right now. The way it's currently being framed is that we will deal with that later. There will be another lottery someday, right? Well, why don't we set that date right now, right? Let's say it's September 1st of this year, and there's gonna be 10 times as many licenses as we got the first time because we undershot it. Right. And so I think that is something that can happen immediately, is to set the timeline and the infrastructure for those lotteries right away so that there is no delay in between, because we do see in lots of other states, lots of different reasons for delay. And even in a place like Illinois that passed in 2018, they still haven't gotten their first social equity round actually up and running. And this is in 2022. So we have to put those deadlines in, and that is a decision that either the legislature could force or the executive branch could just decide to do the right thing and say, this is when the next lottery is going to be. And how many licenses will still be a question. You can't just add 2 more, right? We need 40 more. And that's going to be the big question of, do they listen to us when we tell them that that is what the solution needs to be, is just allow more people to enter the industry, or not? And so organizations like MPP, and shout out to Devon Ward, SSDP and MCBA wrote a letter to the governor that said, this is what you got to do. You got to reduce the equity joint ventures down to just 2, which is what I thought was originally intended, so that they could get whatever fee reduction they need, but not to the point where it's infinite and they can get 50 if they want. That is a bit outrageous. So as we start to, level set the number of licenses, and again, the big solution to making sure folks are able to transition from the illicit market to the legal market is legally allow them to do it, right? And that's how you do it, is by giving them a license. So for everyone that is very concerned about the growth of gifting that's happening in Connecticut, we can solve that problem overnight if we just give them all licenses. But this limited licensing structure is guaranteeing that those other ways of exchanging cannabis are going to continue. So once we get the licenses set, though, the other thing I think that's really important is that the real estate problem can be solved by the states taking any buildings that are not currently being used for whatever purposes they need to be, or maybe are being used but can be consolidated somewhere else, and create incubator spaces for equity applicants, so that cohorts, like say 5 to 10 equity applicants, can work together in a space on state-owned property. Now they don't have to worry about how much it's going to cost or where they have to be, and the state can regulate it as much as they want, right? You can have all kinds of control over that, including having the unions come in and put the apprenticeship program that is outlined in the legislation in those buildings. So you have the unions, which are able to do everything to code and making sure that we do it right. Nothing is, walking off and ending up falling off a truck, but it is very well regulated. They already know how to do it, and you can do it on state property. It would solve a tremendous amount of problem on the real estate side of this. And I know that the unions, shout out to UFCW and Emily Sabo, they'd be more than happy to support this process that, again, was listed in the legislation. And that, I think, would go a long way to making sure whoever does get a license will be successful. So I think those are 2 big things: flipping how we're doing the license numbers, like how many licenses, and the state providing incubator real estate for equity cohorts. I think those 2 things alone would go a huge way to making this more successful.
Thank you so much for that, Jason. I mean, wow, you really did steal a lot of my thunder, but it doesn't matter. Great minds think alike, and you definitely hit on some pivotal points. The licensing is crucial. That is one of the biggest barriers right now. And since we know that, we need to absolutely resolve that in a way that is truly equitable. We throw that word around a lot. It's a feel good, it sounds good, but we need to see what the impact of real equity looks like. And it would certainly be flipping those numbers to make sure that, we're not allowing more equity joint venture capitalists to enter than we are the people who have been directly impacted, criminalized, demonized, and incarcerated behind this. Let's talk about the fact that we have many people, sitting in prison, right, serving time, and some of them have been sentenced to life with a 3 strikes out. Let that marinate, because now we have people with lots of money that are going to be able to get into this industry and actually run away. And to me, that is runaway inequality on steroids. So if we're really talking about scaling back and making sure that these things are done correctly, you have certainly highlighted 2 of the biggest things: the licensing and the real estate, that needs to be adjusted so that those that have been impacted can actually get into this industry, and we can limit, right, the black market. And I really don't like saying black market. I'll say the legacy market, because it is a legacy market. And those are people that are very deserving of an opportunity to participate in this industry in a way that is legal, in a way that does contribute to positive outcomes for the communities that they live in, and so happen to be the very communities that have been disproportionately and historically impacted by the criminalization of cannabis. And being the labor chair at the House labor chair at the State House, I have to say that, yes, shout out to Emily Sabo and UFCW and all the great efforts and the partnership that went into making sure they had a place at the table. And we know that unions will make sure that there's equity, there's sustainability, and folks will get a fair shot. So thank you. I'm looking forward to moving forward with this conversation now that we've had everyone weigh in as panelists. And at this point, Stephen, I would like to take the opportunity to give it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Porter. Jason, you really spoke to the notion of equity all the way. And partial equity is like being invited to dinner, but not allowed to eat. And the point here is that we really are setting a table that involves and includes as many people as we can from the communities that were disproportionately impacted, because this is a rich opportunity to build wealth in those communities through an emerging industry. It's as simple as day for those of us who work in the work of equity and opportunity. I now want to welcome our responsive panel. We have several legislators who are here with us today, and I want to recognize you as you are here with us. And if any of you are among the attendees today and want to be promoted, any of our legislators want to be promoted to this panel, please let us know. I know we've been joined by Representative Travis Sims, we have Representative Mike Winkler, Representative Ann Hughes, Representative David Michel, good to see you, sir. And of course, Representative Robin Porter, who will also be part of this responsive panel. This is a leadership moment. And I really want to appreciate Jason for drawing those balanced distinctions between where the responsibilities of leadership lie at any given point in this work. You did part of the early lift, right? Which is to start clearing the way for so many equity applicants who are now hoping to enter this industry, but there's work left to be done. So I'd love to hear from you. We'd love to start what is a vibrant conversation among the panelists. I'm going to recognize you as I see you on my screen, just to be fair. So we have Representative Ann Hughes.
Hey, thanks to all the panelists, thanks to all the people behind the scenes that have been working so hard to really create policy solutions to what has been policy violence. What Representative Porter and others have alluded to is that we have allowed criminalization of a plant and plant use and medicinal use. And we have not really accounted and repaired for that. Maybe I'm an optimist to think that we can repair some of that harm through policy, and maybe I'm naive, but I'm trying like heck to make sure that this state takes that opportunity and does not squander it and just give it away to the people who have always made the money off of, off of this, basically violence to this war on drugs, but as we say, the war on Black and Brown communities. And that has always been legal for certain, high wealth operators in a certain sector. And I want to make sure that we do not give this opportunity and squander this opportunity to more of the same. So that's why I'm here, is trying to fight for some of those high lawyered actors to get out of the way and open up this green industry. This is a green industry, lots of jobs. It also can be much more environmentally friendly in this new era than ever before. And we are a legacy agricultural farming state. We can be a producer and a grower and locally grown with some of the best product that people don't want to go to other states for. We could be developing a beautiful product here in Connecticut that's high quality, that's organically grown, and then, like you said, it creates all kinds of entrepreneurial opportunities for young people, for our communities that have been locked out of this economy. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Hughes, and thank you for referencing all of the microenvironments of the state. It really is beautiful, the hills that we have, the valleys that we have here, but also the plains where there's opportunity for growing, for cultivating, for manufacturing, but also the diversity in our people and the different types of interest of our people in serving in this industry. Representative Winkler.
Thank you. Well, we started with the best language in the country, and then we made it better. But social equity in this area has failed in every other state based on my standards. And I think the jury is still out in Connecticut. You can't write a piece of legislation that includes every regulation. And the regulatory process is sometimes where the corporate interests manage to steal back a victory in the legislature. So activity now, pressure now is critical if there's going to be any significant amount of social equity. So I just want everybody to stay involved. The legislature, in my opinion, if it's interested in social equity, is going to have to provide capital in the form of no interest loans, or it's going to have with easy repayment plans, or it's going to have to provide the space that you heard about earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Winkler. Representative Michel.
Merci, Stephen. Thank you. And thank you to the amazing group of people that have been working so hard for years on those issues, subjects, and to get us past the finish line and getting the legalization. So we've heard a lot about the licensing and issues with licensing. There are issues also with definitions, and we encountered issues on the passage of the bill where just if you look at the definition of the social equity applicant, how is it 3 times the median income? How is that, like we know we have a limited number. So if we really want to bring the equity in the calculations, then also we should look at incarcerated, households with a history of incarceration. That should have been, that should be one of the criteria on the social equity application. So we do have things to work on legislatively as well. Also, I think that we need to look at the expungements, because limited at 4 ounces, it doesn't make any sense. So we got to make it a lot more fair than it is right now in many ways. And this is the public process now. We need to hear from the constituents all across the state, and also hear from the public. Also, I'd like to stress that the Social Equity Council is doing amazing work, and a lot of the pressure that they get sometimes from the public. It's important to explain that they didn't write the bill. We wrote the bill, and then again, like the good Representative Winkler mentioned, is a regulatory process, and these are the actual areas where we need to work on and make it easier for our applicants. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Michel. It seems to me that the story isn't finished yet. Not only the story of implementing this law, but also the story of following how it is implemented into and through the development of the industry. So I'd like to open up the floor now. I know that several of you have been following the questions that we've seen, not only in the chat, but also some of the questions that we've seen along the side here. So if any of our panelists would like to join, would like to rejoin the conversation, you are now welcome to do so. Please use your hand raise function. But Representative Porter, it strikes me that as you come back and you reconvene around this issue, you noted some of the labor issues that might circulate around this work. I'm also highly cognizant of the fact that, as goes cannabis in terms of trying to really understand how to bring equity into an industry, there is a metaphor here for other industries that have shut out people of color and the poor historically not only in the state of Connecticut, but beyond. So there's a lot to be learned for how well we can do in this particular industry to see whether we can start opening up opportunities for Black and brown bodies in other industries of the state. So I'd love for you to speak to that. And I'd love for any of you to reflect on that, really. Representative Porter.
Thank you, Stephen. I mean, you make a very, very good point. It is fluid. You know, yes, we did pass this legislation. It is law, but the parts are still moving. And I think there's a lot to be learned. And I think we learned that by listening to the people who are out here in this industry, doing this work and being confronted with the obstacles and the barriers that keep them from progressing in a way that they should be able to do so, especially with a highlight on people of color, to the people that have been disproportionately impacted. And as you said, it's not just the cannabis industry. Unfortunately, this has been a historical marker in the United States of America since our introduction to this land. And if we're going to talk honestly and openly about it, we have to talk about, you know, plantation politics. And I'm just going to call it what it is. You know, some of this is seen as sharecropping. You know, you can get into this industry, even though you can't afford to be in this industry at the price tag that's been attached to it. But we have folks that have the money that can back you, right? And to me, that is use you for their purpose, but also, you know, you'll get a little something out of this as well. And I really want to see us continue to shape this industry in a way that addresses those historical markers in history, undoing the racism, undoing the redlining, so to speak. You know, the thing that exists in housing, it exists in every industry. And I think we have the people here today on this panel that can really speak to viable solutions that will be effective and efficient in helping to build this, because an economy is not built from the top down. It is built from the ground up. And until we take care of the people on the bottom, and until we elevate the people on the bottom, you know, all we're doing, I just say it's lip service. So it's time for us to take action in ways that are meaningful and tangible, and that are going to make a difference for people's lives. This pandemic has had a disproportionate impact on top of an already disproportionate impact on certain communities and zip codes. So I'm hoping that we use this as a learning, you know, tool to form what Connecticut could lead on this, hands down, hands down. We have the experts right here on this panel, several of them, that can get us there. So I want us to listen to the questions, you know, I want us to listen to the answers, and then I want us each to go out and have these conversations in our communities with the people that could absolutely be making a profit. You know, it shouldn't just be the rich people, the wealthy, and the corporations that are going to profit off of this. You know, and we have to put the people that have been disproportionately impacted first. They should have first run at this. And as we can see, that is not currently the case. So I'm interested to see what this panel has to say around how do we flip the tables and run the money changes out. Back to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Robin. Luis, you know, I think one thing that has become very clear among those of us who are watching this very carefully is that whether it's cannabis industry or sports, there's a huge difference between the worker and the servant and the producer and the cultivator and the owner. There's a huge difference. And what people are asking for is the opportunity to become owners in these industries. So I think that it's remarkable to think that there is such a movement for ownership and to run your own small business in the state. We are a small business state. And Luis, I'd love to hear your reflections on that as a person who is active in the industry.
So we're going to touch on really quickly both of those topics, really quickly, how we can take equity from the cannabis space and move it throughout the rest of the industry here in the state, and then how we address that as a small business versus one of the large businesses. Moving things over, we have such a hard focus and a heavy focus on social equity and kind of what went right, what went wrong, and kind of where we're going with it, but we're putting a large focus on it because I believe it's been a large focus over the last couple of years. The agriculture industry itself has taken on the idea that, hey, we need to integrate a little bit more. We have to do a little bit more. So now we're seeing the Connecticut Department of Agriculture reach out to its minority farmers and get those speaking working groups together. That's one sector where that's happening. Now we have to also look into what is some of those barriers that a small business and a minority business is going into. Local town and government politics. So your zoning board may put in a memorandum, and your zoning board may be the 5 or 6 members who were the only 5 or 6 members who went to the meeting for the last 30 years. And they have 5 people they speak to, and they literally will control your entire town. What does that mean? As an entrepreneur, you need to be going to that zoning board meeting. That means that now when a slot opens, you need to be looking for either that appointed position or that voted in position. You need to take active role in what's going on in your actual town, because that little bit of time, it may sound small, like, oh, it's just a small town zoning board meeting. That is locking individuals out of the industry completely in their zones. So and this is something that's super regional, because a resident of New Haven cannot go to Hartford zoning meetings and have influence. It normally is way more influential if you actually live in the district where you're speaking to your representatives, where you become your representative. You have to speak for your town, for your municipality, and push forward. So that's one thing. The next part of that is, I want to piggyback off of what Jason was talking about. The state owns a ton of land. The state owns a ton of buildings that aren't being used, that can be repurposed at a very reasonable price point for anybody who fits that social equity, POC, or disenfranchised individual or veteran. And this can go across the board for any industry. If you're moving into the cannabis space, the rents are ridiculous. If you're looking to buy a building, you're looking at $20 to $30 million just to buy the building. There's a lot of things that go along with it, and only some towns have zones for it. So now you have to be involved in your local government. This is another thing where doing it right means you have to be a part of what you're doing. As an entrepreneur, take time to go to these meetings. During the time of COVID now, we have them on Zoom, so it makes it way more easier to actually join in on these meetings. Go online, check out the YouTube feeds, be an active participant in the governing of your town and state, because you're going to be operating in that town or state. As we move forward, talking about how to integrate the real estate is going to be a big thing, because this is another area that generationally is owned by the top tier percentage that have owned everything in the state. If I wanted to, when I started my farm, I had to rent from one of the larger farmlands, and they charged me an absorbent rate. And it wasn't until I pushed forward and partnered with the Minority Cannabis Business Association, got the mentorship, and really honed in on my business acumen, was I able to push forward. And that's very, very, very hard if you're not doing this 24/7. It's a business. I'm now divorced over it. You know what I mean? My ex-wife is an amazing woman, master's degree, really smart. The smartest thing she did was leave an entrepreneur. So so a small business, when we say we are all in, we are all in. And if the state is at least willing to part with or even control the real estate that we work in, as an entrepreneur, I won't be looking at a rent that's $60,000 a month. I'll be looking at something more at a reasonable, what the state would say, hey, this is the reasonable value for this is $10,000 a month or something like that. And you get to work it through and actually work through the state to push things forward. So real estate, ownership, and taking part of your local government are my 3 big pushes for any POC, minority, or small business in general.
Thank you, Luis. Anybody that raises up civics and civic engagement is a friend of the commission. So thank you so much for saying that. It really is critically important that people engage locally, so that not only are you part of the conversation, but so that decisions aren't being made around you. In this industry and in any industry that impacts you. Jason Ortiz.
Yeah, I would be remiss to not have all these wonderful legislators on here and say that we have a legislative session coming up that can make changes that is happening during an election year. And the timing of when the deadline for all of the licenses coming up is going to be roughly in May, depending on which license we're talking about. So the legislative session will happen before these lotteries happen. And so it is really important that over the next few months, we take good use of that time to make it very clear to those that can change course or change decisions either the legislature itself, so our legislative leaders, Matt Ritter, Senator Looney, or the executive branch. And all of those folks are running for re-election this year, and some other, constitutional positions and other pieces. So if folks feel like the things aren't going the way they would like them to go, I want there to be, clear understanding that there are opportunities for it to change, and people have the power right now to just make the decision to change it if they so choose. Because we can have all the great ideas in the world, but if they don't get implemented or get perverted at the last minute, then it doesn't matter how many good ideas we have. And I'll say, pretty sure the executive branch already knows 99% of these ideas, and they're choosing not to do them. So it is about political power, right? It is about organizing in unity, as we've seen everywhere. It is about saying, as a collective, all the folks that are stakeholders in this want X, and there will be consequences you will not get our support if you don't do this, and channel our energies into that. We can organize, till the cows come home, but if we don't do it in a way that actually forces action on their side of things, we're going to be very frustrated at the end of a frustrating session. And so, I want folks to continue with the political piece of it, right? Like the governor could definitely change a lot of things tomorrow if he wanted to, but he doesn't feel that he has to. Our community has not pressured him in a way that he feels like he has to do what we would like. And I think the best way for us to get collectively, like for everyone, to go from 2 licenses to 200, right, really has to be about isolating the folks that are making the decisions and making sure that there are political consequences for not doing the right thing.
Representative Porter.
Thank you, Stephen. And I just wanted to quickly go back to belabor a point that Louis made around the importance of governance, especially at the local level when it comes to zoning. And this is specifically for what I know to be true here in the city of New Haven. So for all my New Haven folks that are tuned in, there are actually several seats open right now on zoning. And that is where the rubber meets the road. That is where the critical decisions are made on how communities are zoned, what kind of businesses are allowed to operate. And unfortunately, we know that zoning in Black and Brown communities looks a lot different than zoning in the suburban communities. And that is on purpose. And if we're gonna address the issue, then we need to undo some of these things. And the way you do that is you get on these boards, you get on these commissions, and you bring your lived experience and you bring your voice, which is your power, along with your vote. So I just wanted to reiterate that, Stephen, and stress the importance of being not just civically engaged, but I mean actively engaged in this civic process. Because until we take that power back, because it's not going to be given to us, we will continue to have these conversations year in and year out.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you so much. Kebra.
And I just wanted to say that even participating on the boards or engaging with different boards and on the municipal level is extremely important, because a lot of the decisions that they are making is just because of a lack of knowledge and education and understanding around cannabis, how this industry works, where these businesses should go, how they should drive. And so if we are engaged and we're actively at these meetings, we can help to educate them and help them make positive decisions that will be useful and beneficial to social equity applicants as license holders.
Thank you, Kebra. Representative Hughes, we do have one question in our bulletin board here from one of our viewers. And the question goes along the lines of some of what's being considered now. For municipalities who have not reported zoning changes for cannabis, how do we find out as an everyday person, how do we find out whether it'll be allowed? For example, Norwalk is not, as of this question, listed on the website as approved, prohibited, or moratorium. How do we get some of this information, Rep. Hughes?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because I think, Ginny Ray, when you were talking about the zoning ones that had limitations, that's kind of in real time, that's happening right now. That's why it's so important to be involved, because there are towns running around trying to pass moratoriums on allowing licenses to study it. Well, they're going to be left behind, basically, of this green economy, this green growth, this micro growth in entrepreneurs. And of course, the sales tax revenue is going to go to a neighboring town or another town. That's why it's so important to show up right now and look at the towns that you're considering and helping to frame the conversation, because there is a lot of stigma, there is a lot of ignorance about what that could look like. What there isn't a lot in the local towns, like some of the ones we represent, is the vision. And that's what this forum is about, is really trying to express the vision of what a positive, powerful, really highly regulated, really good product participation. Maybe it's a packaging, maybe it's like somebody said, a delivery service. There could be all kinds of things in a green vehicle, maybe, that could really bring a new green vision to a positive impact in local communities. I mean, moratoriums are usually about fear. They're not usually about really coming and exploring this opportunity while it's ripe, because my big fear is that if you don't get in on the early stages, we will have big deserts and very, very limited economic opportunities for those towns that declare moratoriums. The thing is, I don't think there is a registry right now on which towns are calling moratoriums or not. And so if your town doesn't have a moratorium, and you got to look at the recent planning and zoning, maybe selectmen or town representative, town committee meeting minutes, I would go in and try to stake out a claim. Danbury and Newtown are two of them. Yep. That have moratoriums, right, Hector? That's what you're saying, that have moratoriums already passed. And I think Glastonbury is too. And that's a real shame. That's a real missed opportunity. Hey, we've known this was coming. We passed it back in July, right? So it's really, it seems to be a knee-jerk reaction to pass these moratoriums rather than exploring with the people. We have hemp farmers in our little small town that have been very successful, and I want to see them be even more successful.
Thank you, Rep. Hughes. I'm reminded that earlier, Ginny Ray Clay, you mentioned that there are some links and sites that you mentioned in your PowerPoint. We will make sure and include those links in the presentation on Facebook Live and on our sites for those resources, but it's important that those resources be updated. We did have a comment on the Facebook page that they have tried to find links to some of those available zoning positions, and sometimes those links are broken. Please, as city leaders, as municipal leaders, make sure that these opportunities are meaningful. Make sure that the links work and that the opportunities are accessible to those who may want to access them. Corey Betts, I see that Representative Hubert Delaney has joined us, and also Travis Sims, but Corey Betts, you've raised your hand. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. First, I want to thank Rep. McCall for giving the social equity the props that he did, with the understanding on we're just here to follow the law. We're not here to change the law. So I think that was very, stand up is for a legislator to say, listen, we did this, right? So we're just following the law. And if I could change the law, I definitely would change the law, but that's not me, right? And one thing that I definitely want to speak to those who are listening, because we're talking about the cannabis business, right? But that reinvestment fund, I think we need to really start talking about that too, on how those individuals who want to open up any business in those disproportionate areas, that there would be funds coming from this so that they would be able to. So I think that's very important for individuals who are listening, because it don't have to just be cannabis. If you want to open up a auto shop, you can tap into those funds. So let's be clear of that. Let's not miss that piece of it, please. Thank you.
That is so powerful. And thank you so much for saying that, because reinvestment is a critical component of this work. And I think the cannabis movement, both the look back, the regulation, and the moving forward, that reinvestment piece that you described, those are three critical legs of this three-legged stool. And unless we commit and recommit to reinvestment, then we have only gotten so far. These communities are still in distress. They were in distress and distressed on purpose. So they need to be lifted up on purpose and with as much intention. So thank you for raising that, Corey. Go ahead.
And I want to say one thing very quickly. This is Black History Month. Here it is. We're just celebrating a month. But when we think about it, right, when it comes to economic development, these things were created to do exactly what it's doing. So now it's time for us to break those barriers so that there's opportunity for the Black and brown communities to be economic developed within their communities, building infrastructure so that they can have, and there's not no food banks, and you have health centers, and you have all these things that's going to make a difference within these communities so that the crime rate go down, health rate is better. So all these things need to be thought of when we're talking about the Social Equity Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Rep. Porter, you and I talk a lot about what real opportunity zones look like. It's not about the buildings, it's about the people. So Rep. Porter, your reflections.
Wow, you always take it home, Stephen. It is exactly that, right? It's the opportunity for the people, and the people actually make the zones. So I think we have to focus on where the rubber meets the road and really pay attention to a lot of what's already been said here. We need to make sure that these opportunities are real, that these barriers are torn down, that this system that was maliciously and intentionally designed to keep Black and brown people down, we address it in a real way. And I always say a fifth grader could tell us how to do this because it really is simple, you know, and it's a matter of making sure that the playing field is level and that the points of entry, the doors are open to all, that we are not, you know, continue to operate in a system that's specifically designed to push certain people out of certain opportunities. We want more opportunities as owners, as CEOs and executive directors in this industry, as opposed to the workers and the laborers, because this is our industry. And I'm going to continue to say that. We have to own that. This is legacy. And it's time that we take it back in a way that is legal. But in order to do that, we have to make sure that those doors are really open. We're tired of having to go through the back door and the windows. We deserve to go through the front door. And that is so symbolic of what Black people and people of color in general have been subjected to in this country. And I just want to go back to something that Corey Best said, and I also salute Representative Michelle. Corey, you and I have had those conversations. I will take the opportunity as well to say it publicly that we are the lawmakers in this state. We did legislate this. We passed it. And you guys are having to deal with what is before you. You can't change it. You're right. But I think what's really important is that you are here. You are a part of this conversation. You continue to be exposed to the people and the ideas that can help to reframe this in a way that is truly equitable. So I want to thank each and every individual, those here and those that are not here, that are serving on that Social Equity Council, because that is also a place where the rubber meets the road. And let us not forget, good people, they are doing this free of charge. It's not anything that they're being paid for. And I'll say monetarily, because I do believe that you are being paid in ways that will go way past any amount of dollar amount you could put on this. Because when I think about it, I'm thinking about my children. I'm thinking about my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren. I'm thinking about the generations to come and the generations that we've lost that have not had an opportunity to build wealth and live the American dream. This cannabis industry was criminalized for far too long. And the American dream for many people in Black and brown communities has actually been an American nightmare. And I don't think that it's fair that if we're going to open this, well, we have opened this industry up, we should be talking about making sure that those who truly deserve a chance, and I'm not going to say a second chance because many haven't had a first chance. They have to have a chance, Stephen, to participate and liberate. And participate and liberate in a way that not only benefits themselves and their families, but let's be mindful, this will benefit the state as a whole, right? Senator Winslow, I love it. He says equity requires revenue. Well, we need revenue. We need funding. We need capital. A lot of the things that have been mentioned since we've been on this forum. we need to make sure that that's being done in real time. Because as Representative Hughes said, these things are happening now. The train has left the station, and we need to make sure that we are equipping our constituency and those that wish to participate in this industry with the tools they need to succeed. And that is really knowledge, and the ability to apply that knowledge is what is true power.
Thank you, Robin. Kebra.
And I just want to reiterate the fact that people really, the community at large, everyone's interested in this industry. You have to show up. You have to let legislators know how you want this industry to be, what you want it to look like. You have to advocate for parts of the industry that you feel are missing. A lot of the issues that people are having with this legislation now, if they had been up in Hartford over the last year or so and really looking at this industry and had the forethought, we might have been able to stop some of that. So we can't fix that, but we can definitely realize that it's so important that we show up and that we are a part of this process going forward so that this industry can be what we want it to be. Jason, Lou, and I can advocate all we want, but they're not going to just listen to us. They're going to listen to communities really engaged in speaking about what they want to see. And they have to start with the governor. They have to work with local officials. We need our voices heard at every level to make sure that this is done right.
Thank you, Kebra. Thank you for reminding us that the laws of the state of Connecticut and the regulations that follow are not scripture. They are actually people-driven words and people-implemented decisions. So thank you for that, Kebra. As we think about what our role is in informing that implementation, go ahead, Kebra.
And I just want to say one thing, because I think about myself. I never was a political person, never thought I could influence policy, but I saw an issue. I saw my community being affected and wanted to be a part of changing that. And so I began learning about policy, learning how to talk to legislators. It wasn't easy, but it was something that I developed. Now I'm able to walk up to someone and just say, make my point, make it very clear, and ask if they need more information. And that's exactly what we have to start doing as a people. We can affect change. We do have power. We might be poor, we might be disenfranchised, we might not come from generational much of anything, but we have a voice and we have power, and we need to let that be heard.
That's wonderful, Kebra. And I don't think it matters what part of Connecticut you're from. I think that resonates with so many of our people here in the state, free people with a strong voice. And that's really critical, I think, for each of us to remember as we think about some of those things that are impacting us from this capital and from the infrastructures around it. We need to inform them. So thank you for that, Kebra. I see that we're joined by other state reps. Please feel free to use your hand raise function or to kind of unmute yourself so that I can recognize you. But as we think about, as we're coming to the close of the main part of our session here, I just want to reflect on just the vibrancy of this conversation. We think about all of the various ways in which this one little plant, right, this historical artifact that has been part of the human experience for so long, whether criminalized or medicinally, or in all of the ways in which the artifact has traveled through our history, to come to this place of opportunity together as a state where we are not only elevating an industry, but also at the same time elevating the people who have suffered around it for so long. That is critically important. It is for me an optimistic story about how we may be able to lift people up around other industries as well. It's critically important to understand our modern way of thinking about value and about resource. There is no such thing as scarcity when it comes to the human imagination. There is no such thing as scarcity when it comes to the value and the power that each of us brings, but that we multiply by coming together, and that is no different in this industry. Each of you has shown this, and I think that if we can get rid of all of these old notions of there's only just enough to go around, then we could start lifting each other up to actually be meaningfully engaged, not only in this industry, but in all of the other industries that will surround it and that will continue to lift the people of the state of Connecticut to greater impact and opportunity. So I want to thank all of you for being here. I know that each of you has a powerful role in everything that's happening around us today. And your invitation, your humbling invitation to the people of the state to join you in that role is really powerful. Thank you for uplifting civics in that way. And thank you for being leaders in every way that you are every day. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.